So, what are you supposed to believe when the Prime Minister is telling everyone to calm down, that everything's fine, but a prominent senator is out there declaring a full-blown crisis? Well, that's what we're going to dig into right now. We're looking at the heated debate around Australia's fuel security and exploring one politician's very stark warning that the nation is right on the brink.
And that quote, that's coming straight from One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. It's a heck of a claim, and it really sets the stage for her whole argument, which isn't just about supply chains, It's about what she sees as government failure and a very real threat to the Australian way of life. All right, so let's get into it. We've got to start with the core conflict here. You've got one warning, but two totally different messages being fired at the Australian public.
Okay, let's break this down. On one side, you've got the official government line, which is basically, everybody relax, nothing to see here. But on the other side, you've got Hanson's response, and it's blunt. She's not just saying there is a crisis. She's accusing the government of not being straight with people about how bad things are. And that disagreement right there is really the heart of this whole debate.
Okay, but if you're going to make a huge claim like that, you need to back it up, right? So what specific data and reports is Pauline Hanson actually pointing to when she says there's a genuine fuel crisis? Let's take a look. According to Hanson, this is the big, scary number. 30. Just 30 days. That's supposedly Australia's total fuel supply. And we're talking petrol, diesel, and jet fuel all rolled into one. I mean, just hearing that number, it kind of makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
And to really hammer that point home, Hanson uses this comparison. She points over to Japan, which she claims is sitting on a massive 200-day supply. When you see it laid out like this, the difference in strategy is, well, it's pretty stark. And that's exactly the point she's trying to make.
And this is where her argument gets really interesting. She says, and I'm paraphrasing here, look, if countries with 6 times our fuel reserves are already talking about rationing, then why aren't we taking this seriously? She uses this to argue that the official everything's fine message just doesn't line up with what's happening around the world.
Hanson also argues that this isn't some new problem that just popped up overnight. Nope. She says it's been a long, slow decline. She takes us all the way back to the year 2000, when Australia actually had 8 oil refineries running.
And then you fast forward to today, and that number has plummeted down to just 2. For Hanson, this is a massive red flag. It shows a critical weakness, a growing dependence on international supply chains that we can't control. And listen, this isn't just about abstract numbers. Hanson brings it right down to the ground level, talking about what she's hearing from the farming community. She says farmers are genuinely worried if they'll have enough diesel in 6 months to even harvest their crops, which, by the way, takes way more fuel than planting. You add a fertilizer shortage on top of that, and suddenly you're looking at a potential food production crisis, all tied back to energy. So, if the situation really is as dicey as Hanson claims, how in the world did we get here? Well, that brings us to our next point, pointing the finger and assigning responsibility for what she calls a trail of blunders.
Now, what's really crucial here is that she doesn't pin the blame on just one government or one party. In her view, this is a systemic failure that's been happening for decades. She says both of the major political parties have dropped the ball and allowed Australia's fuel security to just wither on the vine. And as her prime example of this alleged failure, she points to a really controversial deal. It involves an oil field shared with our northern neighbor, Timor-Leste.
Okay, so here's the story, as she tells it. It kicks off in 2004 with this international incident where Australia was found to be spying during treaty talks. Well, it goes to court, Australia loses, and Hanson says that as part of the deal, the government just handed over control of the valuable Northern Endeavour oil field. She then jumps forward to 2019 and accuses the minister at the time of making the mistake even worse by basically doing nothing and refusing to release an important report about the whole situation.
So after all that, laying out the problems, assigning the blame, what are the solutions? Well, Hanson proposes what she sees as a clear path for Australia to become self-sufficient.
She lays out a very clear 4-point plan. It starts with immediate relief at the bowser by cutting fuel taxes. Step 2 is about making sure imports actually get here, with the government underwriting shipments to guarantee delivery. Step 3 is a pretty bold move. She wants to regain control of that Timor-Leste oil field. And the final, big-picture goal is to get the country laser-focused on becoming totally self-sufficient in oil and gas. And within that plan, she's very clear about who should be first in line if there's a fuel shortage.
essential services, right? We're talking police, ambulances, hospitals, and making absolutely sure that our rural and regional areas aren't left high and dry.
And just to put a fine point on what she believes was lost, Hanson offers up this number: 30 million. 30 million barrels of oil. That's what she claims is still sitting there in that Timor-Leste field, a local energy source she argues Australia should be tapping into right now.
So we're left with two completely different views. You've got the government's message to stay calm, and then you have Pauline Hanson's warning of a crisis that's been built on decades of failure. This whole debate really forces a much bigger conversation, one that goes beyond day-to-day politics, and leaves us with this fundamental question: for a modern nation like Australia, what does true energy self-sufficiency actually require?